Good evening, everybody. It's Kelby with Fire Through Fog. Tonight, I'm here with we've just now met. I've talked for about 5 to 10 minutes and seems like a very cool person. I'm going to introduce her as her Facebook bio, because it's pretty stinking cool. But she is the envelope pushing, whiskey sipping, taco loving, bacon frying, grace serving mama of boys. And her name is Sarah Ball. How you doing tonight, Sarah?
I am fantastic. Thank
Awesome.
you for having me.
So it's Sarah Taco Ball.
Yes.
That's pretty sweet. Tacos are good. They're probably my favorite.
Yes, I'm mildly obsessed.
Yeah? Do you go to Taco Bell often?
No, but I do have tacos every Tuesday, if not more than once a week. My license plate is whiskey taco. Like I breathe whiskey tacos.
That's amazing. That is awesome. So where did you say you were from?
I am currently residing in Wilmington, North Carolina.
Okay. And you actually said you were in London at one point.
I was living overseas. My then husband at the time is military, and we were stationed overseas. And he actually walked out on us. He met a person overseas and packed his drag bag and left. And so he told me pick a place on the map, and I was escorted out within 48 hours and ended up in Wilmington, North Carolina, and COVID hit a week later. Our children were actually locked in overseas. They were emergency evac'd out, and now my kids and I are residing in Wilmington, North Carolina.
Awesome. How many kids do you have?
I have 3 boys. I have a 9-year-old, a 13-year-old, and an almost 15-year-old.
Awesome. I bet that's a handful.
It is.
So what branch was he in?
He is Air Force.
Okay, that's what I was.
Yeah.
What does he do?
He's ammo.
Okay. That was an interesting job. So I had to, for my job, I was public health. So I had to do hearing tests for all those type of jobs. So I met everybody across the base. So I knew their jobs up and down. I felt like I could have went and done their job from the conversations I had. So
I love it.
Yeah. So do you like North Carolina?
I do. I'm born and raised in Dallas, Texas, so it's good to be back in the South. I can't complain. I live at the beach.
Really?
So yeah, it's kind of hard to really find any faults here.
Yeah, I was actually in Charleston, South Carolina for the 8 years I was in. We loved it down there. Definitely miss it. Now we're back up in Ohio.
Oh,
yeah.
I couldn't do it.
Yeah,
I couldn't do it. I lived in Utah once, and I was like, okay, if the kids are older, maybe. But the snow is a lot. It's a lot.
It can be for some. I mean, I was used to it, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I want to be here forever.
Yeah, so. I couldn't. I tried the North, and I was like, yeah, I'm definitely born and raised in the South.
Yeah, I love the South. I mean, the people are it's definitely different. People say, I don't know about that. I feel like you got the same. No, I don't know. It's just like free spirit down there.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Like when I moved to Utah, I was like, oh, Southern hospitality is really a thing. I thought people just kind of poked fun at us, but it's a for real thing, and I miss it.
Yeah. Yep. So what do you do right now?
I am a mom. I am an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. I'm actually doing some work with the veteran community. Like I had mentioned, I do a lot of work with the 22 a day, suicide awareness. So I'm big in that community. And then I am on the fence of launching my own program by the end of the year. So that's in the works, making sure that I've got my ducks in a row before broadcasting that. But
yeah, definitely do it.
Long-term goal. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, we were talking a little about, I told you about the Silent 22 we have. That's kind of just about the whole 22 veterans a day that commit suicide. So I'll have to pass that information, kind of share that with you.
Definitely.
So cool. Now we kind of went over your kind of past and everything you mentioned. So I'm just going to let you jump right into it. So you go ahead and tell your story.
Okay. So clusterfuck of a life. I can't say that it was really any better or worse than most. We all have a story. But it got to the point where the hitch just kept coming. And at a younger age, you just don't have the mentality that you do now. So I used to be embarrassed that I have attempted suicide, not once, but twice. And that used to be something that I had shame in and guilt and was very embarrassed by. And I can't really tell you when that changed for me as far as a mindset. Obviously, survival's been really cool, and I'm definitely on the other side of the spectrum. But I used to hold that darkness very near and dear to me, and I used to protect it because I was just so embarrassed by it. And then it's kind of like the more I spoke on it, the more I was like, I don't fucking care. Like, I'm not ashamed. That's my story. And I now actually realize that I've reached many more people with speaking on it than keeping it. And it's been bittersweet how many people actually understand that kind of darkness. I know you had mentioned that you haven't had that kind of struggle. And it's wild because I thought everyone was so much like you and not like me. And the more that I speak, the more people are like, I can relate. And I'm like, shit, let's talk.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's actually been a really bittersweet journey. And then after my 2 attempts, there wasn't a whole lot of help out there. One, I wouldn't speak on it. And I just thought that I was just broken mentally. I was like, I'm just doomed. Like, I'm never going to get out of this. Life's not going to stop swinging. And I don't know how to gain traction in this. And in 2014, I met with some doctors and they immediately saw my history. They've seen the trauma. They've seen the diagnosis. They've seen the 2 times that when you do commit suicide, if you survive, you are locked up. You are put in a psych ward. You are under surveillance. You are given prescriptions, whether you want it or not. And you're kind of labeled, unfortunately, as much as I don't like that word, that's what happens to you. And then depending on your behavior and your progress, kind of depends on how long you're going to be locked in a ward.
Yeah.
And so in 2014, I just could not get my feet on the ground. And I went to a doctor and they immediately saw my history and they were like, oh, we're labeling you with this. Here's your prescriptions. Have a great day. And I felt so defeated because I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this again. And so I took the prescription route. And I will be very clear, I am not against prescriptions. I truly believe that they are there to help and get some grounding for people. For me, it was a fucking train wreck. And I knew it the minute that they wrote the first prescription, but I kind of felt that my hands were tied, that if I didn't do what they recommended, I wouldn't continue to get the help. And so I took the prescriptions, and in 2015, I was just circling the drain. I had planned out my 3rd suicide just to simply make it stop. I didn't know what else to do. And I knew that the prescription writing and the therapies and the appointments, like nothing was going to stop. And so I had planned out my 3rd and potentially my last suicide in 2015. And at that point, my doctor, I don't even remember why he wasn't at that appointment, but there was a sit-in physician. And when she saw what I was on, she gasped. She said, I cannot fathom that you're even alive with the amount of stuff that you're on. Has anyone ever talked to you? And I was like, no, they just keep writing prescriptions. And she's like, this is crazy. And so in 2015, she organized a detox for me. And this was the first doctor that genuinely listened and actually showed concern for my well-being. And for the first time in my life, I felt safe. As silly as that sounds, I felt that I could be honest and real, and it was going to be protected and not just prescripted. And so by the grace of God, she was an angel in disguise. And so in 2015, actually December 1st of 2015, I started my detox, and I've always believed in God, but it's always kind of been hey, this is too big for me. Can you help? It was never like, hey, thanks for this. It was never consistent. Yeah. It was only like, shit, I lost control. Fix it. Thanks so much. And then I would just move on to something else. And so in 2015, I knew that the chances of me surviving my detox were low. And I knew in that moment, I can't explain it, but for the first time in my life, I wanted to live. I didn't want to die. And that was a very different feeling. And I almost was paranoid because I was like, this is for the first time I want to live and I might die. And this just sucks. Like, how did it go this way? And I cleaned out my master bedroom closet. I had nothing in there but a Bible, a notepad, and a pen. And my only prayer was, God, if you're real or if you truly work things, I'm going to give my life to you. If you can get me through my detox, then I will get my shit together and I will figure out this life and I will never waste it again. I'll never toy with suicide. Like, I will figure it out. Just get me out of this part. And then I'll make a pact with you. And so April 5th of 2017, I had completed all of my detox. That was the last day of my prescriptions. That's kind of when I got right with the Lord, so to speak. And I've not looked back. And I can't explain it other than the grace of God, that if you had told me then that I would be where I am now, I would have laughed at you. And so it's been the most exhilarating ride. It's been the coolest, neatest experience. I've taken bigger hits since 2017 than I have in my life. And yet there's just been a power behind it where I'm like, this is nothing. I'm going to be just fine. And here I am.
That's awesome. Good on you. I mean, that's crazy. What led ultimately to these attempts at suicide? How far apart were they? How long ago were they before 2014?
They were about a year apart. And the first one, I honestly, this is going to sound so silly and I don't know if it'll be relatable, but the first one was simply because no one was hearing me. I was screaming that I wanted help. I was telling everyone that I wasn't okay. And I felt that no one was taking me seriously. And I know that sounds young and dumb, but in that moment, that was my reason. I was like, well, fuck it. If no one's going to hear that I need genuine help, then why stick around? And so I didn't want to die on my first attempt. I was doing it more as a cry for help.
Mm-hmm.
And for people to take me seriously. Like, I'm not fucking around. I am genuinely not okay. And you guys just think I'm fine. Like, I'm smiling, I'm laughing, I'm getting things done. So I'm fine. And I'm telling you, I'm not fine. Something is so wrong. And so my first attempt was more of just to send up a flare for help. Like, okay, if no one's going to listen, I'll go big and maybe heads will turn. And so that was the first attempt. And then it actually backfired because I survived, which was not necessarily my plan. Once I decided I was going to do it, I was like, fuck it. I might as well just go big, go home, right? Like, I don't want to survive it because then I'll be the girl that cried wolf. So I'll just go all the way. And then sucks to be these people. And when I survived, it knocked the wind out of me. I remember my dad was there and he had a bouquet of daisies. And I just remember waking up and being very confused. And he was just at the foot of my bed and he said, why would you do this? And I said, I don't know. Mm-hmm. And I was more thinking, shit, it didn't work. Like, what am I supposed to tell these people? This didn't go as planned. And then anger set in because I was like, well, great. Now everyone's going to comment about, the girl that didn't die. And now I'm going to be labeled as crazy. And now I have a whole new can of worms to deal with. And so the weight of that set in. And a year later, I attempted suicide with the plan of dying. I was way more aware of how to kill yourself. I knew how to execute that plan. And my only, I guess, description is God said no. I have no idea why it didn't work. It should have worked. Even doctors were like, you're going to have long-term damage. I don't think you understand what you've done. And I was like, I do, but it wasn't supposed to go this way.
So if you don't mind me asking, what route, what route did you take?
I did an overdose. The first time I was naive, I had a handful of Tylenol. And the second time I had the prescriptions from the ward on top of the psychiatrics that I had put on to sustain. And I took everything. I had timed it out to get it's a 90-day refill. I had done so well. You'll get 30 days, you have to check in. And then the better that you get, they move it to 90 days. And so I timed it to where I was going to wait for my brand new 90-day refill on everything I was on. And then I was going to cash that all in. And I did that and did not work.
That's crazy. Wow. Yeah, definitely. I mean, for me, I believe in God and everything and have some strong faith. And that does seem like something you probably still question it to this day. Like, why didn't it work? I mean, to me, that's something that's God putting his hand on you saying it's not time yet. And you still have a lot of things to do. So that's really cool. That's really strong.
But I also have learned that God works in very big ways. And the fact that he went so big was confirmation for me of my purpose. And I almost struggle with myself because, like I said, I was going for a third time, and it took me having that third experience to be thankful. And part of me, that was part of my healing, is I felt that I did such a disservice to him. I was like, he saved you twice and you were going for a third, like not realizing that second one should have been your aha moment. Mm-hmm. But when you're in that dark, it's unexplainable. It is a dark that you can't breathe. It's almost as though you were in a vacant room and you're just screaming for someone to turn on a light and no one can hear you. You're muted. And it's so bizarre because you see everything else is still functioning around you and you're stuck. And you'll do anything to get unstuck.
That's one of my questions. So we had someone that I graduated with, I'd say a few years ago when I was still in the Air Force. Had to have been like 2016. It was a few years ago. He was someone that like everyone knew him. Everyone loved him. He was always smiling. Like you would have never thought that on any day on earth that he would have committed suicide, and he did. So it's like, it's just like, I mean, me being the person I am, I'm like, man, I wish I would have just talked to this guy or reached out to him, but I guess I can't sit there and take blame or anything, obviously, but I didn't really talk to him off that much anyway. Everybody knew him. He was the face of our class basically, but I just wonder, like you kind of just said it, you're not physically screaming, right? You're just, it's inside your body internally that you can't get out, but you see everybody out there knowing that they could help. But that's crazy.
Yeah. It's wild. And it is one thing that's tough working with the veteran community because we lose so many, and it's hard because it is as simple as someone saying, "Are you good?" In that moment of wanting to kill myself, I would have a handful of prescriptions and be taking them and be pleading. Like if someone just called me right now, I would stop. If someone would just call me, if someone would just check on me, if someone would just say, "I'm here." It's that simple. And yet we don't say that to anyone because we've convinced ourselves that no one's going to understand. And I don't know. It's so wild what our brain tells us and convinces us of. And it's so heavy that you just want it to stop and you will do anything to make it stop. And it's crazy because people that know me, I am a very outgoing person. And if you look at my life, I have a beautiful life. I have a very beautiful life. I am beyond blessed. I've worked my ass off for this life, but there are so many people that are like, "What are you doing? Like you have the white picket fence, all American family, and you just flushed it away." And I'm like, yes, that's how dark and heavy it is. And it doesn't make sense if I tell you I'm not okay. And so it's hard because we lose these veterans constantly. And it's as easy as just calling them and saying, "You good?"
Yeah. It's so,
we can't because we don't know.
It's hard. It's definitely hard. I mean, for, like I just said, for that, my classmate that committed suicide, it's like, I'm sitting here wondering what I could have done, but I didn't know. And maybe others didn't know. 'Cause you're telling me it's mostly internal and there's really no way to let it out because you're waiting on someone to stick their hand out. Yeah, I don't know. That's crazy. I couldn't even imagine.
I tell people our best, it's so wild because, they struggle with the VA and they struggle with just day to day. And it's as simple as texting them, hey buddy, just thought of you. You good? And so as an advocate for suicide, I tell people that the number one, not cure, but the number one thing that you can do is check on your people. The very first thing I do in the morning is anyone that's on my heart, anyone that I've seen, social media, you'll see people, they kind of change their Facebook or they haven't been on in a couple of days. I immediately shoot them a message. I'm like, you good? I'm just checking on you. And I've been working in that community long enough that people know if I'm checking on you, I'm just checking on you. I'm not trying to sell you on something. I'm not trying to open up a big dialogue. I'm just checking on you. And so I've built that community. But as an advocate, I tell people to check on your people. It is literally that simple. I don't care if it's one person. I don't care if it's 100 people. Just check them. Be like, hey, just checking on you. Are you good? Are you genuinely good? Because a lot of them will tell you, oh, we're good. Don't worry about me. Because at that point, they're trying to retreat and they're hoping that they can cut ties with enough people that no one's going to notice when they disappear. Because we don't kill ourselves to hurt somebody else. We are very aware. For me, I can't say we. For me, I knew that I was going to be passing on that burden to my children. I knew I was going to be passing on that burden to my then husband. But some people are like, that's so selfish. And I'm like, you don't understand. You just try to cut ties with those people. Because staying is equally as devastating because my boys watched me bedridden and dying. So I convinced myself I'm actually saving them by leaving because they're not having to watch me day in and day out not be okay. If I just rip the Band-Aid off, they'll grieve the loss of me, but it's no longer a constant linger of me just being in their lives as a crappy person. So you leave.
That's some strong stuff for sure. And the only way for me to understand is doing this right here now with you. And still I won't ever understand unless
check your people.
What's that?
I said, check on your people.
Yeah, I've got that wrote down and I'm definitely going to start doing that. I do it already kind of. People I know and stuff especially from the military, I have a handful of people that I kind of hit up, but not enough. So going back, what led you, I guess, to the first attempt? Was there any events or trauma that you experienced that kind of just boiled over? And
not necessarily. I've got crazy family history. I've got just events that people would label as, oh, that's why she did it. And the hard truth is ultimately in this life, you have a choice and you can dance with your demons or you can face them or you can let them win. But ultimately it's on you, which was one of my biggest things is eventually I had to stop blaming people for fucking up my life. Yes, you made a mark on it. And yes, you fucked with me. But at one point, do I take that back? And it's no longer you fucked with me. Now it's how am I going to handle what you did? Because now it's on my responsibility. And I missed that part. I just kept thinking I am so overtaking hits in this life. And I wasn't strong enough to own my responsibility in that. I quit. I was like, I'm fucking done with this. Or it didn't help that I didn't have a support group in that. And I went on an apology tour and I was knocking on doors with my family and my friends that I grew up with because I had some missing pieces and no one would give me the truth. And that also really fucked with me because I was like, man, I know I'm not crazy. I know some really crazy things happen to me and no one's fucking owning it. No one's telling me, you know what, you're right. You're not making that up. And so I also kind of did it as a fuck you, because I'm never going to get these answers. So how am I going to heal? How am I going to decide how I want to handle this when you guys can't even be honest with me? So support is a big deal. I didn't have that. So it was also kind of another nick of, well, I'm just going to bounce because what difference does it make? So I think just that collaboration of everything, it was very easy to convince myself that I didn't need to be here.
Was there anything that you had, I know you made the choice, I guess I'm trying to ask the question, when did you realize that it was time to change the change the tide. And kind of, did you have to take any responsibility for yourself or anything? Or was there stuff that you discovered, maybe, hey, maybe this was me, or maybe this is something I could have done different?
No, which sounds so irresponsible, but it was literally one, I got so sick of my shit. I got so sick of being bedridden and strung out on pharmaceuticals that I was like, fuck it. Either I'm going to die or I'm going to live. Like, it's one or the other, but this limbo of just getting a refill every fucking 90 days and being stuck in a bed is not living. So my mind rationalized, and whether that was me being high on prescriptions and seeing Jesus, I don't know. But in that moment, I was like, well, I know I'm not capable of saving my own life because I've tried to take it twice. And I also know that after talking with this new doctor, I'm so far gone on pharmaceuticals that I'm fucked anyway. So the only person I can rationalize to turn this around for me is God. So I watched War Room, actually, and she had her prayer closet. And I was like, well, hot dog, I could do that. Like, let me get right with the Lord in this closet. I got nothing else to do.
Yeah.
And so I pulled everything out of my closet and I threw a Bible in there and I had a notebook. And I said, all right, God, here's your time to shine. I'm either going to kill myself or you're going to figure this shit out. Like, that's my ultimatum. But I also got real with myself in that, okay, if you really survive this detox, you're going to fucking step up. Like, it's your time to shine. If he truly gets you through this, you can't fuck around anymore. And so for me, it was more of an ultimatum with Jesus. And then Jesus was like, well, I'm going to get you through it. And now you better hold up your end of the deal. And that's what I done.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Yeah. That's cool. So you had mentioned also previously with me is that you experienced the death of your son's father. And you said you had 3 sons. Was this your oldest? Yep. Okay. I don't know if you want to talk about that a little.
In 2006, I was living in California. I met a man at a beauty shop who actually just swept me off my feet. We had a beautiful relationship, absolutely wild. It's so wild to look back on it because he was the man who taught me how to live. And he taught me that you could do anything in this life. You literally can be whoever you want to be, do whatever you want to do. And he really showed me the definition of life. I didn't know it in 2006, but he breathed fire and our relationship went super fast. We got a place together in Laguna Beach and we had this little efficiency, and he was working on a television show and he was being interviewed that afternoon, and I was at work and he's like, hey, do you want to come? They're going to take my photographs. They're going to interview me for the television show. And I was like, absolutely. I'll catch you on lunch. And I went and met him for lunch. And we had actually gotten in a fight because I'm one of those girls that if we're together, I'm wearing your t-shirts, your socks, I'll borrow your toothbrush. Like, I don't give a shit, whatever's available. Like, it's all ours. And so that morning he had laid out an outfit for the interview and I couldn't find socks. So I just picked up the socks and went to work. And on lunch, he's like, are you wearing my socks? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, those are the socks for my interview. And I was like, calm down. It's just socks. So then I was mad and pulling the girl card. I was like, you're so damn dramatic. It's socks. And he's like, this was a big day for me. And I was like, I'm done. I'm going back to work. You're ridiculous. And so that night, he was going out to celebrate the success of the television show and the interview that went really well. And I was being that bitter girl. I was like, I'm not hanging out with you because you were mean to me at lunch. And so that night he called me at about 7:30 and I couldn't understand anything he was saying. The words were slurred. And then I, again, was that girl. I was like, oh, now he's drunk with the guys and acting a fool. Like, fuck this. I'm not even going to go hang out with him after work.
Yeah.
And so I went to my girlfriend's house.
Were you still wearing the socks?
Yes. Yes. I actually went and bought a pair of socks that I had every plan to like give him in the morning. So I had those in my car. And I was going to give them to him that night, but then he got supposedly drunk and I was like, I'm fucking keeping these socks and I'm not coming to hang out with you. And so that night I went to my girlfriend's house, and the next morning, an attorney called me and he was like, yo, where are y'all at? You need to get to LA. The show's been picked up. You need to come sign, blah, blah. And I was just like, well, his dumb ass is probably drunk somewhere. And he's like, okay, well, this is business. Like, you all need to get to LA. And I was like, all right, I'll go scoop him up, and head to LA. And so on the drive from my girlfriend's house to our apartment, I got a phone call from his brother. He said, sis, where are you? I said, I'm driving to the hotel or to my apartment. The show's been picked up. And he's like, okay, but where are you? I said, I'm driving to the house. And he said, go to mom's. And I was like, why? And he's like, just go to mom's. And I was like, what's going on? And unfortunately, the people that he was partying with that night, they had a hit out on him. And so he was murdered.
Wow.
And that was it.
Wow.
And I found out, I had a reoccurring dream of a little girl on a soccer field, and she kept running up to us and was like, mommy, daddy, mommy, daddy. And I just thought, wow, like, fuck this life, because we had built something so beautiful. And now I'm having a dream of a daughter, and, you know, grief is so stupid. And my friend was like, well, are you pregnant? I said, no, because like scientifically some things have to happen for that to happen. So no. And Lord and behold, I was pregnant. And so the day of his funeral, I went to his funeral that morning, and then I went to the doctor that afternoon. That was the only day they could get me in. They confirmed my pregnancy, and I went to the reception and gave birth to our beautiful boy in 2006, in September. So wow. January 19th, he was taken, and then I birthed our son on September 14th of 2006.
Wow.
So
that's crazy.
Cool. Yeah.
Now, did that affect you going forward? Did that that didn't obviously probably help with where you were going.
And it's crazy because you'd think that would like wipe a person out. But my life was a constant flow of just bullshit like that. And so, no, it didn't impact me, I think, how it normally would for a person. It was just another tick of like, life is bullshit and I'm really over it. But I also knew like, okay, I have a kid, so what am I supposed to do?
Mm-hmm.
And then it wasn't until later I gave birth and we had a beautiful family. And I think at that point, for the first time in my life, I was safe, and it turned out to be a happy ending. And for the first time in my life, I could breathe. And I think that's when I lost control, because for the first time in my life, I had a moment to stop and truly breathe. And then it just was a train wreck, because I was like, holy shit, I've been through so much.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what to do. And then I just lost it. I broke.
I have two big things I definitely want to talk about and ask you. But the first one is, what would you rather have being in those situations? Medication, I think I know the answer to this, or just having someone there to talk to and care?
Talk to and care.
Yeah. That's what I think, because yes, definitely knowing the veterans and stuff, and the whole 22, that's all they ever say. I can't stand going to the VA, because all they do is just throw medication after medication at you, just expecting, just kind of, it's like a Band-Aid. It's just temporary. And that just, I mean, I guess, like, not to say it like that. It's just, it's not going to fix you. Mm-mm. And I think you know that.
Yes. Well, and that's where it's hard, because I do take a lot of heat. Like I said, I'm not against prescription drugs. And I can only speak for me personally, it's a pharmaceutical, it's an industry, and no one can convince me otherwise. And when you can put a person on a 90-day cycle, that's a paycheck. That's a paycheck for the pharmaceutical industry, who's the supplier. That's a paycheck for the doctor who's writing the prescriptions. You know, you are a repeat customer. You're an easy target. And it's wild, because when you do your checks and balances, they're so quick to write you a prescription, and then that one doesn't work. They convince you of, oh, well, it's this combination, and oh, there's 6 other trials, and blah, blah. And rather than just being like, all right, dude, let's chat. How fucked up are you? Do you need to own some shit? Like, there's never a plan. It's, oh, we'll try this and we'll see you in 30 days to reevaluate and weigh in. It was never a, how can I help you?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
unfortunately, these veterans are easy targets and they're just put through the system casually and they're not provided with the help. And a lot of these, I didn't like some of my darkest days were because I was so strung out. Like I didn't have hallucinations until I was prescribed medication. I wasn't bedridden when I got started. All of that was after the prescriptions to the point that I wanted to die because I got so sick that I was like, fuck this. I didn't get any better.
Mm-hmm.
I'm now bedridden and 100 pounds. And they're not stopping. They're just increasing the doses. So, like, I'm fucked. I'll just kill myself.
Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah, definitely. I've always been someone that like talking. I mean, just with this podcast, just people come on here and you can see and they tell me and they say, man, it's just feels so good to talk about this. I don't care how many times I've talked about it, doing this, and there's something else that I just discovered about it and another emotion that I just discovered about it. And it just feels really good. And I enjoy that. I mean, like I said, yeah, I've had stress. I've been in depressive states and everything, but nothing to the extent where I felt the way you did. And obviously no one ever wants to feel that way, which kind of leads into the next thing I kind of want you to squash. And I'll be completely honest with you. I've thought these same thoughts of people who commit suicide or think about committing suicide. Is people call them weak. They call them cowards. They call them selfish. I'm sure you heard this. Why would you do that? Like, that's so selfish. And you kind of answered it earlier. You said you knew that you were going to be leaving your boys behind and hurting all these other people and leaving them with this pain. So that's kind of something I've like I said, I've honestly thought that and said that before. 'Cause I'm like, that's dumb. Like you have that. Why take that route or take that choice? I've kind of faded off that after maturing myself in life. But, and I just want to hear your side
on like how I combat.
So what would you say to someone that's saying that, to kind of maybe persuade them differently to think and be like, well, maybe, yeah, that's definitely not it. Cause I know you've talked on the feelings and how it's an internal darkness that you're in and you can't get it out.
Yeah. Well, my first response is one, it's grace, because how beautiful to know that person doesn't understand. How beautiful that life hasn't hit you in such a way that you can't relate to me. I would give my life to trade places with you. And so for me as a suicide attempt survivor, grace has been so beautiful, because when someone comes to me in a way of not understanding, I'm like, oh, how beautiful to have not come to the dark side.
Yeah.
And so I've served grace to that. And then to try and have someone understand that dark is, it's not me. I don't want to die. And I don't know if it's Satan. I don't know if it's, maybe I am crazy. I can't pinpoint what that is, but there is something that it's heavy. And I'm not saying heavy as like a theatrical, like you can feel it. It is heavy. Like if you put a weighted blanket on and you felt that pressure, that's what we have, but we don't have a blanket. You can feel it coming for you.
Wow.
And it's something that you just want it to stop, and you'll go to the ends of the earth to make it stop, and quickly. And I think that's why we lose a lot of, our veterans to a straight gunshot, because it's quick. It's fuck, this thing's coming, I'm out, because they know. And you can only fight that dark for so long before you can't do it, especially when you've convinced yourself, you've fought for so long and it's not stopping.
Yeah.
You can only fight for so long before you're like, fuck it. Like if someone was getting their head smashed against a wall for an hour, eventually you would beg to just die.
Yeah.
Please don't smash my head one more time. Just fucking kill me. This is crazy.
Yeah.
That's what it's like. You just want it to stop.
Wow. That's pretty cool to hear, because I mean, unless you go to that dark area, you'll never know. And for someone like you to sit here and say that you feel grace for this person, such as me, that I have not experienced that you would probably never wish this on me or your worst enemy.
No.
From that's I have no words for it. That's powerful. No. And this has already helped me. Like I talked about before the podcast, is I feel selfish for living through these stories and stuff, but it's honestly helped me. Like I have chills. I got a knot in my throat. Like that's insane. So, yeah.
No, you're a connector. I don't know if you know it yet, but it's wild, because I know the minute you told me like, oh, well, I kind of live vicariously, I was like, he doesn't know he's a connector. He's going to be bringing people, and this story will reach somebody that has a gun to their head, and they're going to be like, holy fuck, let me track this girl down on Facebook, and I'll answer you.
Yeah.
I'll sit with you in the dark. We don't have to talk, whatever you need, I'm here. But that story will go, the people that you've prior and moved with, that story will go. And it may be 10 years from now, it might be tomorrow, but you're a connector, and you're not just living vicariously. Like, you have been chosen to put these people in place to build, and it's going to go out and it's going to reach who it's supposed to reach. And that's wild to me.
I appreciate that. I mean, really, that's what it is. I mean, I'm curious to hear these. I'm curious. Like, I know you and the people I've been through would never wish that I experience this stuff. And I hope I never I have to. I truthfully do. No one ever wants it. It's going to happen in life to people. Obviously it's happening. You're my 13th, 14th episode. It's happening. It's going to continue to happen. But I just have this curiosity. I want to understand and feel it so I can be of a better resource for people, because I don't want people to struggle. I don't want people to commit suicide. It's not fair. It really isn't. I mean, it's not fair to you to have to feel that way and want to take your life, and you can't do anything about it. So I think it's very powerful. And I every time I do this, every time I talk to someone, I just get more and more excited. With your kids now, did they realize what was going on? Did they have any, I guess, resentment or anything, or of not understanding, or how are they now, I guess?
It's actually really wild. So kids are so much smarter than we give them credit for, right?
Oh, yeah.
And as parents, it's our job to protect them. And it's so crazy because they witnessed me bedridden, and we never told them, oh, well, mommy's sick. We just said, mom's tired. Mom has a headache. Mom is having a really bad day, where they all knew like something's just not right. Like, you've had one too many bad days. And so they knew more than what we told them. They didn't know to the extent of like, mom, you may never see her again. And now that I'm on this side of it, I'm very honest with my children. I'm very verbal. I've spoken about suicide with all three of my boys. They had questions. In 2016 was pretty much when I became alive. I know that sounds so cliche, but April 5th, 2017 is when I truly became alive. And I will never forget it. I was actually making pancakes, and my oldest came out and he just said, Mom, are you okay? And I said, yeah, why? And he's like, no, like really okay. I said, I don't know what you mean. And he's like, well, you're making pancakes. I said, yeah, I've got to get y'all ready for school. And he just was like, Mom, I'm scared. I said, scared about what? And he's like, because you haven't made breakfast for us in a very long time. And I said, what? And it dawned on me, I had been bedridden for 2 years. I hadn't made breakfast. And so for him to comment on it, it absolutely knocked the breath out of me, because I was just thinking, my God, these poor kids. And that was like another flame lit of like, I've really got to do something with my life and like never take it for granted. And so in that moment, I sat down and I talked with my oldest, and I was just like, my God, buddy, you will never see me in that bed again. I will go to the ends of the earth to make you pancakes. And you have been just sold short because of my fuck ups, and mom was sick, but that's an excuse, and you'll never have to go through that again. And now that they're older, they're very aware that I've got the semicolon tattoo, which is my story isn't over yet. And they know what that stands for. They know that they can come to me with anything. But no, you could interview any one of my boys and they will tell you the two sides that they have witnessed, and the joy that's in our home now. I went through a divorce in 2020. It was finalized, and you could tell that they went through that traumatic moment, but you wouldn't it's not normal. Like, joy was not taken out of our family. It didn't hit us as hard. It was more of just like, oh, okay, like that sucks. Here we go.
Yeah.
And so it's been kind of neat to watch them in the dynamic and just the way that they carry themselves. And they know what joy looks like, and they know how to obtain it and how to hold it, and what fight looks like.
And they were able to see both sides. They were able to see how you were at your absolute low. But now I think they'll choose the joy 10 times out of 10, because they see what it has done and how it's affected you and how it affected them. And it's really cool.
I love it. And they'll tell you Jesus, like, we all love Jesus. And I cast that to him because I simply can't explain it. There's no way in Sam hell that I could have gotten through that detox and come out on the other side. It's just not, it's not realistic. The numbers that my chart showed, the condition of my heart when I started, it's just not explainable. Like when I walked out of the detox, even my doctors were like, that's a walking miracle. And I was like, I am. I know I am.
Oh yeah.
Because I sat in my closet and I gave God an ultimatum, and I'm going to be damned if I don't walk out of here a miracle. And like, remember this. This is it. This is where it changes. And it changed.
Wow. Has anybody told you, I mean, even me, even if you told me a story, seeing you now, meeting you now, would just be like, I didn't know you went through that.
Yeah.
Like, do you have people that have come to you that knew you prior and knew when you were going through that time, and now they see you and they're just like, wow, I can't believe that can be done. And that's kind of where we're going with this Fire Through Fog, is like, these people that are out there in the same dark times that you are, I want them to be able to hear this and be like, it can be done, and I can turn this around because Sarah did it.
Yep. So it's kind of crazy because I keep a very small circle. And so it's kind of funny to hear you ask that, because I'm like, well, shit, everyone in my circle has known me for 25 years. So no, none of them are very surprised. I think if you were to ask them, they're more surprised that I attempted to take my own life, because they're like, she's such a fucking fighter. Why is she folding? Like, she's taken crazier hits in life and she killed herself now. Like, what? Life's finally good. And she tried to off herself, but is she crazy?
Yeah.
And so if you talk to anyone, that's more of the response that you get. But it's really crazy because my husband is the one who held on to resentment. And that's partly why he walked out on us, is because he deemed me a liar. He said, you can't go from bedridden and knocking at death's door to this kind of life. So either you were lying then or you're lying now. And I'm like, oh, that's a shame.
So were you married to him during these times? Okay.
Yeah. And so he ultimately left because, I don't know why. He's never told me. I know that he met someone and there was an affair, but obviously shit leads up. Like, dudes don't just have affairs, right? But I do know that he struggled because my detox, he was actually deployed when I began the detox, and I didn't tell him I was in a detox. I kept that very private because I didn't want any outside influences. I didn't want questions. And I generally didn't think I was going to make it. So I didn't want people worrying about it. Just wanted to do it on my own. And then, like, however it went. So when he came back from a deployment, it was a complete 180. When he left, I was 103 pounds. When he came home, I was at 125 and out of bed. So that was a big shock for him, but it was almost too much of a shock because he's like, well, who the fuck are you? Like, what did you do? I don't get it. And then he struggled after that because he's like, you can't just wake up one day. You can't just walk. You can't just all of a sudden love life. Like, you've been so dark for so long. And I'm like, God. And he's like, bullshit. Like,
I wonder if that was some kind of,
but no.
I wonder if that was some kind of like defense, because I wonder if he was on edge or something. I don't know.
I don't know, but he'll tell you that he's very skeptical of me now. because he knew me then. And he said, you can't fake that. And I was like, he's like, so you're faking this. Like, he believes that I'm who I was in 2015 and that this now is a facade. And I'm like, okay, but I've been this way since 2017. Like, most liars crumble after like 90 days. Yeah. Okay, let's be honest. If I'm faking it, I am fucking crushing it, because it's been years that I am up and doing things. Like, at some point, you've got to just understand that God is very real, and I'm not going to convince you of that. And if you want to walk out, you got to go. Like, I'm going to elevate, and I'm sorry that you don't want to go with me. Yeah. Bye.
Yeah. And you even said you're an entrepreneur and everything. And what kind of adventures are you going on now? I know you mentioned having your own program and stuff.
Yeah. So I'm looking into doing that, because so many people want to work with me. And I'm always just like, well, just call me. And I laugh because Sean Raylan is like, what the hell are you doing? And I'm like, I just feel like you should help people for free. And he's like, fuck no, you shouldn't. And I'm like, well, I don't know. I'm just trying to help people. Yeah. So I struggle with that mindset, especially for me, because if someone is in that dark, I don't care about the money. If I can be of service for you, let me be of service. Because if anyone could have thrown me a life jacket in that time, that could have been a game changer for me. And if you had told me it was $20, I would have just fucking panicked. I was like, wow, you have the blueprints, but you want $20? Like, what the fuck? Like, I would just kill myself. So it's kind of hard for me to think like, oh, you would turn that into a monetization. But I don't think that part will be monetized. But I have people all the time like, oh, I want to work with you. And I'm like, no, where I'm like, what am I doing? Maybe I should. Yeah. I should really look into it.
Yeah. I like that saying, though. I don't know if you want to lock that down, throwing someone a life jacket, simply just asking a genuine question. How are you doing? I like that. You should use it.
I do. My catchphrase is, are you good? Genuinely. Tell me how are you?
Yeah.
I used to ask people like, how are you? But I've realized in working with the veteran community, they'll tell you they're good.
I put a video out about this. I don't know if you've seen it on my profile. I actually put it on Facebook, and I was like, we need to stop doing this. How are you? Or just with a stranger, like you pass, how are you? Good. How are you? Good. And just move on. You don't know if they're like, no one's going to tell you the truth. No. I mean, let's be specific. Let's ask specific questions, genuine questions. I learned in a Dale Carnegie class I took down in Charleston for a leadership class. But one of the rules that stuck with me is get people to talk about themselves.
Yep. And
just keep your mouth shut. Get them to talk about themselves, and you will build a relationship and a rapport right there.
Yeah. Our biggest, I think, it's not a mistake. It's just a lack of knowledge, is everyone's so quick to ask, how are you? You will hear, I'm good, every time. Yeah. Because no one wants to be a burden. And especially someone that is walking in the dark, the last thing they want to do is cause attention. Or we're trying to cut ties with people, not make friends. Like, we're trying to disappear, not be of light.
Yeah.
So we'll just say we're good. We're great. Life's good. We'll even throw a smile out there.
Yeah.
Like, we'll tell you we're great. And then we'll go home and want to kill ourselves. So no, I always ask people, are you good? And I've done it enough now that people know, like, I'm not fucking around. I don't give a shit if you're good or not good. Tell me how you're doing. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't ask people, how are you doing? You're just going to get on good. Yep. And people aren't good.
Yeah. I've been trying to work on that. I mean, just hit them with a follow-up question, if anything.
Yeah.
And if they don't want to talk, they'll leave. They'll walk away.
Yeah.
They may be fine.
Yeah.
Or you just ruin their day.
Yeah. That's okay. I tried.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this was powerful. Do you got anything else you want to add or anything?
I don't think so. I mean, if it goes out there and anyone is struggling, you can find me on Facebook. I'm not big on Instagram. I'm actually a pretty private person, as funny as that sounds. But if anybody's struggling, I don't give a fuck who you are. Track me down. Mm-hmm. We can cry, we can curse, we can laugh, we can do fucking nothing and just sit, and I'll watch the time go by and listen to you breathing. I don't give a shit.
Yeah. And I'll definitely help with that. If someone reaches out to me, I'll get you guys connected. Like I told you before, we actually had my aunt and some other mom that lost some similar situation. My aunt with SIDS, got them connected. So I checked in onto that today, and I think they were actually going to call each other today. So
I love it.
I'm excited to hear about how that went, because that's just my ultimate goal, is just to connect people and not let people sit in the darkness by themselves sit in the fog, I guess, just sitting there. Like, someone else has to shine. I mean, this metaphor is great. Like, fire through fog, like someone's got to shine their fire on you and help you build yours, because you will just smolder.
You will.
So
you will.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate this conversation. It was very powerful, and just, I admire you for how far you've come and what you've went through. And definitely I'll get you the information about the Silent 22, and it's making me want to get more involved. So I appreciate that, and I want to. So yeah, well,
there's thousands of communities.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Which is not funny, because I'm like, oh, and we're still not saving them. Like, there's got to be a better way.
Yeah, and there's millions that need help. So.
Yep. Check on them. It's so simple, and everybody misses it. Like, the biggest thing I hear is, Sarah, if I had just known. And I was like, when's the last time you checked on them? When's the last time you genuinely just hit them up? And they're like, shit. And I'm like, that's what they're falling through the cracks faster than we're checking on them. Yeah.
I need that. And a lot of people need that. So I appreciate it. Well, if you don't have anything else, we'll just end it here.
Perfect. Well, thank you for having me.
No, I appreciate your time.
Cheering for you. I'm fucking jazzed, man.
I appreciate it. And I'll be following you too. Right. So have a good night.
You
too.